lament the tariff now as though it is a new feature of the Trump's administration, and something that is a surprise to the rest of the world, would be false and would be not understanding what President Trump had promised even before he assumed office. He campaigned on this promise. So now that we know what the specifics are, and I want to go through from our initial understanding of all that we have read from yesterday to now, that this is the current understanding of what was announced yesterday. I just want to go through some of the features of the announcement. So President Trump imposed a 10% tariff on all countries in the world. So all goods imported into the United States of America will have to pay a 10% tariff to enter into the United States of America. And this 10% rate is applicable to all the countries of the world. That tariff will go into effect on April 5th of 2025, the 10% tariff for all the countries in the world. He also announced individualized reciprocal tariffs that are higher for over 50 countries in the world, in which Guyana is included. These will go into effect on April 9th. Now, how did the United States come up with the higher reciprocal tariff for these countries? What calculation did they use? So a number of people thought that it is based on our own trade barriers, that is higher tariff rates for goods coming from the US, that caused us to be in a higher bracket or in the category of higher reciprocal taxes. From what we looked at, all we have read, it seems as though that all of the countries that have had higher reciprocal tariffs are countries that have been exporting more into the United States of America than they're importing from the United States of America. That is countries that have a trade surplus with the United States of America. So that was it seems as though that is the basis for higher reciprocal tariff, not individualized tariff barriers in each country. So what data was used to determine these tariffs? So from yesterday to now, we have looked at the UN Comtrade data. So for 2024, it says that Guyana exported $3.3 billion into the United States of America and imported $2.56 billion. So we had a trade surplus of $799 million. That is based on our report to to the UN trade, the Comtrade database. The United States of America reported also to Comtrade that the exports from Guyana into the United States of America was $5.5 billion. Our import was $1.3 billion, and the trade surplus is $4.1 billion. So we have differences from our reporting to Comtrade, UN Comtrade, and the US report to Comtrade. So for example, let me just give you an example. Our import data, when we look at how much we imported from the United States of America, we had 2.5 billion. The US has 1.3 billion. So the deficit, the trade surplus that the United States now has, or Guyana has with the US, our figures show a trade surplus of 800,799,000, and the US figures from their reporting to UN Comtrade database, $4.1 billion. So clearly there is room for us to work with the US partners to clarify this information. Now, given that our trade surplus is $4.1 billion, the way the formula applies, at least all that we have read so far, is that you take the trade surplus, which is the difference between export and import, and then you divide it, which is $4.1 billion, then you divide it by the export figure again, which is $5.5 billion, and you multiply by 100. That will give you 76%. And then you divide by 2. And that is how they came up with the 38% reciprocal tariff. So when you apply this, so every country, the bigger your trade surplus is for the United States of America, the bigger the surplus is in percentage term, the higher would be your reciprocal tariff, because they take using this formula. So that is why and it's across the board. It is for friend and foe alike. The United States has applied this right across the board on the basis of this formula that we think that they applied. We're still to work closer with the US government on the numbers and to see if that is what is applicable in our case. So clearly we would want to point out to the United States of America, because we have good import data, that we're importing much more from the United States of America than that is reported by the US to the UN Comtrade system. And so that is one area where that can lead to a significant reduction in the trade surplus. Secondly, if you look at the progression from 2020 to 2024, assuming we use the number that the US is using, their report to the UN Comtrade. In 2020, the trade surplus was $69 million. 2021, $1.3 billion. 2022, $1.7 billion. 2023, $2 billion. And 2024, $4.1 billion. So you would see clearly that our trade surplus is largely because of our export of oil in the last 4 years. That is why we have a major trade surplus with the United States of America. So we can clearly make that case, and we can also make the case that the majority ownership of the exporters of oil, the company here is an American, Hess and Exxon, because they're the majority owners for the venture that they have in Guyana that's producing oil and gas. So I think there's still room to discuss a lot of these issues with the United States of America, to show maybe to clarify if there is any difference in data on which the calculations were made, which hopefully can result in a lower tariff, because the United States have already made it clear every country in the world would have to pay, tariffs getting into their market. I believe we can work with the U.S. partners to ensure that this is happening, to show that, and this trade surplus has not been for a long period. It's of recent vintage, the trade surplus, and mainly because of the export of oil. Unlike with some other countries in the world, they have, like China, China has been running trade surpluses with the United States of America for 20, or Canada for 20, 30 years now. So I think there is a lot of room. Now, President Trump also, in the executive order that he signed yesterday, it's the White House executive order, there are there's an annex to that order which exempts certain items from paying the higher reciprocal tariff. So we looked at our top exports into the United States of America, the 10 top exports. We exported 3.1 billion, based on our figures, 3.1 billion of petroleum crude, 36 million, I'm rounding up, 36, 37, it's 36.9, but I tend to round up numbers all the time, round up or down. So it's 37 billion of aluminum ore, 18.9, 19 billion of fresh fish, fresh chilled frozen, 16.6 million of gold, 8.7 million of molasses, sugar, honey, 6.5 million of alcoholic beverages, measuring checking instruments, 5 million, fish, crustacean, prepared products, etc., 3.1 million, wood and wood manufacturers, 2.6 and 2.5 million. So those are the 10 top exports into the United States of America. The Annex 2 of the White House executive order has exempt certain categories of exports from the reciprocal tariff. So petroleum crude, which is $3.1 billion, the top export, is exempted from the reciprocal tariff. Aluminum ore, which is the second highest export into the United States at 37 million, is also exempted. Then gold is also exempted. So 3 of the top 10 products are exempted from the higher, or top 10 exports into the United States are exempt from the reciprocal tariff based on the White House order that President Trump signed into law when he brought the higher reciprocal tariff in place. So right now, it's very early. It was only yesterday this was announced. As I said before, President Trump has made it clear, whether you agree with him or disagree with him, that his economic strategy is focused on rebalancing the trade deficit using tariffs. And the United States is an important market for the rest of the world. It has a huge demand. And he's made it clear that if you want to access their market, you have to pay tariffs to enter the market. He is saying that he's trying to eliminate the trade surpluses that some countries have with his country by the use of higher tariffs. Our discussion with the United States government will have to show the points I made earlier, that there is no inbuilt discrimination against U.S. products coming into our market, and because that is the concern with some of the bigger countries, and that we do not put high tariffs or non-tariff barriers to U.S. exports. So we are looking forward to having that engagement with the U.S. government. I want to assure all of our exporters that we'll work with them as we learn more of the issue. We will be meeting with them, working with them to ensure that they can continue to access the U.S. markets and other markets in the world, and they would have the full support of the government of Guyana so that we do not lose economic output, welfare associated with the loss of economic output. This is like people losing jobs, etc., in the export industries. So those meetings will take place. There is no need to panic about this issue. I saw some people trying to make it political. Oh, Guyana alone is facing these tariffs, and we're friendly with the United States government. Yes, we have a strong partnership with the U.S. government, but this is part of their policy to deal with their rebalancing of their trade. And it applies to everyone around the world. It's only the uninitiated, like I saw some of the useless people from the opposition already trying to make this as a failure of Guyana or our diplomacy or anything else. It has nothing to do with that, and they should have not been surprised. We were anticipating it. We just did not know what form it will take. But we anticipated that this will happen. And yesterday, it came in a particular form. President Trump announced it. So 10% for all countries, and then higher reciprocal tariff based on calculation mainly of your trade balances with the U.S., positive trade balances with the U.S. So now we know what they are. We know what the exemptions are. We know what we have now, how to craft our own policies here. So, and now we can engage with the U.S. government on specific issues concerning trade. So there is no need to panic or to get thrilled about this issue. It's part of the routine. As I said before, we'll be meeting with a lot of the domestic exporters shortly. Now, may I say that apparently I've not seen it, but there I heard that there is a really gruesome video being circulated, and I hope people will desist from sharing the video. From what I'm told about it, it's really gruesome and brutal. And you can stop by not sharing it. You can stop it being disseminated by not sharing it. People can take responsibility, just like how you would not want to share something that is blatantly racist or blatantly a lie or trying to divide our people or to undermine our sovereignty. Why would you share these gruesome videos, especially of people being subjected to violence? So I want to urge people to not do so. Just imagine the victims were members of your family, how you would feel if you see this being circulated widely. So I just want to say to people, please don't share this. I had a lot of fun this week watching the ongoing talks between the AFC and the PNC. So Mr. Norton already made it clear he is the candidate. I think he was hailed as the presidential candidate at their General Council meeting, and I think in all likelihood Norton shall be the candidate. So, and he implied that all the permutations that you're seeing would lead nowhere but to Norton being the candidate. He said many things at the General Council meeting, and I will not take issue with any of the things he said, except that he said they would win the next elections. And on that issue, I think he is a bit delusional. So, but he's free to express his delusion anywhere. But have you seen the AFC and how pathetic they are? I don't know if you have the same sort of revulsion that I do when I read the stories about them and this whole bid. So first of all, they brought in Alston Short to be their negotiator. Again, he was the negotiator for the Commingsburg Accord, the ill-fated accord. You remember when they promised Nagamutu will chair cabinet and he will list the ministers, a whole range of things, promises that were made to the AFC. And then the cabal, the corrupt AFC cabal, went into office, and their daily perks overrode all the promises that they made to the electorate. They had no backbone. They never insisted that the Commingsburg Accord should be respected. So we know the history of the Commingsburg Accord and how ill-fated it was, and who the chief negotiator was at that time, Alston Short. So he came back to Guyana again, and not a single person from the media has gone to Alston Short, although he is in Guyana, and asked him, how come you were supplying scales from a negotiator and a PR person for the AFC? You started supplying scales to Guyana. Remember, Patterson is charged in a matter where they awarded a contract to the same Alston Short who lives in Jamaica to supply scales. He never had a company that did any of this sort of business before. For, I think, over 80 million Guyana dollars, the scales never arrived in Guyana. It was, we believe, payment for the work that they did in 2015. But the man is back in the country. There's an active court case, and not a single person from the investigative media has ever gone to him and asked him, what about this? Where are the scales? Do you have the document? Wasn't it a payoff using taxpayers' money? All of that. He's back here. Just imagine if that was the PPP had done that. They'd be hounding the person every single day. So he's back here. He's negotiating on their behalf. The AFC, they can't negotiate for themselves, so they had to bring him in. And then I saw they want 60%, then they went to 40%, then I don't know, somebody said 30%, then 35%. So 35% of all the seats in Parliament, in the cabinet, and all the appointed officials, elected officials. You remember how they were putting people like at the EPA, etc. So even public service agencies are top leadership position, which you should not really be negotiating between political parties. People should be hired on the basis of merit to these organizations. They're already negotiating how to split up these, who will get the jobs. So as I said several weeks ago, their preoccupation, their primary concern is splitting spoils. How they can't win the election. They don't have a pathway to winning the election, but already they're talking about how they will split up jobs, who will get what, which ministry they will get, who will get top jobs in the government if they win office. That's what their primary concern is. Now, I can understand the way to start a negotiation. If I were to go into a negotiation to form a coalition with another group of persons, I will start off on a program. I'll say, what do we want to do for the country? What do we have in common? What do we want to do to create wealth for Guyana? To allow the wealth to be sustained. What position would we have on health care, on race relations, on external policies? Can we coordinate this and work a program for us? Once we subscribe to that in philosophy, then we can start talking about how we implement the program and who's best suited to implement. They don't care about people. They don't talk about housing or water or external affairs or generating wealth. All their concern has been for several months now, 6 months, who gets what? Who gets what?